Chapter 11. Kit. A row of vials lines the edge of my desk. Each one is filled with a heinous assortment of herbs that I am expected to swallow every 3 hours. Eli, more somber than usual, but as insistent as ever, promised a stern scolding if he returned to find his tonics untouched. Then he drifted distractedly from my study, scribbling into his booklet. It has been less than 24 hours since Peyton returned from that first trial, wearing a bloody crown and displaying her wounds. Less than 24 hours since the several glasses of champagne I guzzled while awaiting her, trying to quiet the noise in my head. Less than 24 hours since death showed her face, tugging at my weary soul. I rub at my bleary eyes. They hardly shut last night, not when every shadow could be death's. Even now I flick my gaze over the study in search of that chestnut hair. But not for the reason most glance over their shoulder, wondering if it is death's gaze they feel on the back of their neck. Fear of one's fate is what makes Mara so elusive. Some are obsessed with finding her before she finds them. But it's not fear that drives me. It's the truth. Even fewer hours have separated me from my first exploration of Mother's room since her death. Father never let me within 10 feet of it, as if my presence alone would mar her memory. And perhaps, for once, his cruelty was warranted. It was my life that brought about Iris's death all those years ago. Her bedroom was untouched, kept company only by a thick layer of dust. The jewelry box on her bedside table was unassuming, though the promise of tracing a ring that once clutched my mother's finger, or a necklace that hugged her closely, had me lifting the lid. But the love notes I found inside did not display my father's bold handwriting. No, they were inked with looping letters, and a devotion Edric Azar wasn't capable of. I would know that curling penmanship by feel alone. My mother was having an affair with the king's mind reader. With my mind reader. Even the shyest whisper of an heir's illegitimacy can crumble a kingdom. And if I am a bastard, my real father is all that stands between me and my rule. I drum my fingers against the chipped edge of my desk. Mara has been avoiding me, and seeing that she is, in fact, death, I should feel relieved. But between my 4th and 5th flute of champagne yesterday evening, I realized that her strange attachment to my soul could be useful. Death knows the dead. Is the dead. With a sigh, I pull the gilded crown from my head. It would feel odd wearing it as I reach for the silver letter opener hidden between strewn sheets of paper. I'm not sure if what I'm about to do is brave, benevolent, or brutal. It's rather desperate, actually. Perhaps even teetering on the edge of something crazed and familiar. But my forced fits of coughing aren't drawing her out. It seems she needs something more convincing. Something closer to death herself. I unsheathe the thin blade. It's dull, which provides an inkling of comfort, though that only makes piercing my skin all the more difficult. I rest the point above my heart. Take a deep breath. Impale the threads of my tunic. Push until I prick the skin underneath. Further still, and blood blooms. Pain sears beneath the blade's persistence. What are you doing? Mara has arrived. I've drawn death from the shadows. The lack of emotion on her face clashes with the veiled urgency in her voice. She's draped in her usual black attire. Tunic, pants, cloak. The auburn hair I've searched for falls effortlessly into the hood at her back. Summoning you, I answer truthfully. I wasn't sure it would work. If you ask for death, I answer. Her eyes flick to the patch of dark blood staining my navy tunic. Your soul has already been marked. A blade to the heart is only begging me to steal it. I'm not trying to die, I say quickly. I'm only trying to get your attention. You have my attention because you are dying. Fine. The word is curt. I pretend my compliance is conditional, due only because it is what she wishes to hear. But it is so much worse. I believe her. I'm afraid death herself can be trusted to know the imminence of mine. So, help me before you steal my soul away. A shadow of surprise crosses her face. You really aren't afraid of me, are you? I set the letter opener back on the desk, careful not to drip blood on my notes. You don't look like something I should be afraid of. No, she tilts her head. Not in this form. I don't dwell on her words because I wish for my lack of fear to remain. Running from death only wastes your life, I murmur. I would rather face you head on. She weighs my words carefully. You Azers are just as bold as I remember. So you do remember the Azers? I inquire quickly. All of them? Some more than others. Emotion flashes in her eyes. But yes, I remember every soul I dragged to the moors. The moors? I repeat, chewing on the foreign word. What is that? It is where the dead reside. Can the living go there? I ask, sounding very much like the mad king I once was. The corner of her mouth curls into a soft smile. The moors is not a place that is found, or conquered, or coveted. It does not exist on your plane. Life may not cross over into death's territory. I hold her gaze. But could I? That placid expression of hers never budges. Is that what you want my help with? I need to speak with my mother. The words spew from me, laced with desperation. I need to discover the truth about something, and she is the only one who can tell me. It is imperative that I speak with her. If I can go to the moors, Iris Azer. I fall silent at the name. Mara speaks it as though she is reminiscing on a distant memory. I haven't checked on her in at least a decade, she utters evenly. She was one of the easy souls. My throat bobs. Let me see her, please. Death eyes me for a long moment. I don't usually speak to the living about the afterlife they will face. Then why are you here? I retort breathlessly. Why come to Ilya and haunt me? I'm still a living soul, after all. I run a hand through my hair, wincing at the shallow wound on my chest. Why waste your time on someone you can't steal away just yet? A faint line forms between her brows, a physical crack in her stoic facade. Is death not allowed to wonder about life? Stalk it, even? Her gaze darkens. Just because I am death, it does not mean I fail to feel. I'm surprised by the pang of guilt that accompanies her words. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about death. You. I shut my eyes with a sigh. I don't know anything about you. Mara stares at me long enough to catch one of my genuine coughs. It's more of a rasp, really, but I swallow the burning in my throat before it can swell. I watch as death's gaze shifts from me to the row of vials across my desk. Those won't help you, I figured. You cannot cheat death. I wouldn't dare try. No, you wouldn't. She agrees. But I could. My pounding heart quickens its pace. What? You will need to die, temporarily, she adds. Like I said, only the dead can cross over. And how do you know I'll only die temporarily? It's a struggle to spit out the insanity. You can bring me back? Mara laces her fingers together. Contrary to popular belief, I am not responsible for choosing who goes to the moors and when. I only bring them there when life grows tired of them. She drags her gaze over me. Your time will come, but it is not now. I stand from my seat, head spinning. So, how do I die? I can stop your heart, she says plainly. Give you a proverbial push from the tightrope of life. I can pull you back after a few minutes. But time does not exist within the moors, so it may feel as though you are there for a long while. The absurdity of each word is only rivaled by the fact that I am speaking to death herself. I pace atop the worn rug, treading a path behind my desk. This goes beyond the actions of a mad king, beyond any sane thought at all. This is life and death, and balancing somewhere in between. But I would risk anything to speak with my mother one last time. What do you need me to do? I ask sternly. Mara shifts her gaze to the floor. Lie down and let me kill you. I appreciate her directness, despite how threatening she sounds. So I stride past those worn armchairs and halt before the heated hearth, glancing back at death. I'm startled to find her right behind me. She still wears that flat expression, but I get the sense that her patience with me is wearing thin. That realization has me swiftly flattening to the floor, where I watch her loom above. My voice sounds suddenly small. Why are you helping me? She kneels at my side. Curiosity. Any further questions are stifled when she places a hand on my chest. Her touch is cold, even through my bloodied tunic. But not in the way rain chills or the stone walls cool in the winter. This is a lack of warmth, like a feeling of emptiness, more than a sensation. I suppress my shiver when she says, "I don't have as much power outside the moors. I usually remain within death's territory. But in order to talk to you, the living, I crossed into this plane." "So, what are you saying?" I ask hesitantly. She looks down at me with those eyes that seem to behold everything at once. "To wake you up, I must remain here. That means you will explore the moors alone." "Okay," I swallow. "As long as I'm alive for the ball." Slowly, she offers a final piece of instruction. "When you find who you are looking for, touch them, and they will be able to see you." I'm thoroughly concerned before my heart even shudders. It's a literal stalling of the organ. What a strange sensation. Life failing. I gasp, but death only pushes harder against my chest. The world begins to blur at the edges, growing dark. My heartbeat slows to a slothful pace. Everything is slipping away. I am drifting. 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 Dark.
Chapter 12. Mara. This is terribly reckless, but quite fun. Mara sits beside the unmoving king. She killed him. Well, for now. Power strains beneath death's skin. The moors is her well, and when away from it, she starts to run dry. But some part of her, perhaps the heart that aches to beat again, wants to appease the young Azur. Terribly reckless indeed. Mara drags a cold finger across the king's knuckles, then the stubbled curve of his jaw. It is foreign, this feeling. Or rather, feeling anything at all. Death does not touch the living, but his soul is so delicately in between. A feeling begins to fester in her chest, something even more dangerous than she. Hope. Mara has experienced this horror firsthand, like something pleasant that's a breath away from becoming painful. Water too cold, it burns. Fire too large, it consumes. Love too grand, it kills. That is what Kit Azur feels like. An enticing devastation.
Chapter 13. Kit. I wake with a strangled gasp. My body feels stiff. I didn't think being dead would bring so much discomfort. It feels as though I've fallen through the floor of my study and slammed into the world below. Is this what it feels like to be shoved from the proverbial tightrope by death? I stare up at the gray sky while I gulp down several shallow breaths. Thick fog whispers over me, tracing my figure like a pet playing with its food. I can sense a sort of hunger from the shifting dampness. This only compels my once still heart to beat wildly. The ground beneath me is cracked and dry, crumbling against my palms as I push myself into a sitting position. Sound is muffled within my ears. Blearily, I look down at the pale earth, tracing the web of cracks crawling in every direction. One is several inches wide and displaying a gaping nothingness below. I should know better. My eager curiosity was one of the things Father hated most about me, and that perhaps is the reason I now indulge it. My hand stretches towards that split in this strange world. What is it that lies below the moors? Another realm to be ruled by a stoic deity? Or maybe... The earth rumbles beneath me. I shove myself away when that crack in the ashen soil stretches and gapes. A guttural growl cuts through the pressure in my ears, reverberating from the ground that caves in beside me. The impossibility of it all stuns me for a second too long. I'm slipping, sliding towards the ravenous earth that wishes to swallow me whole. A strange shout is coaxed from my throat when I stare into the nothingness reaching for me. My fingers claw at the crumbling ground, desperately trying to pull myself from the growing grave at my feet. It seems the moors feels cheated by my almost death. Wrenching myself free from the splitting soil, I struggle to my feet. My heart pounds in time to each of my strides. I sprint through the fog, throwing a glance over my shoulder. The ground is caving in behind me. Destruction is a step too slow, nipping at my heels. I yell for death, some kinder deity, I'm not sure. But the earth is hungry for my soul, and if it sinks its teeth into me, I may never return to the living. My lungs burn. The ground is cracking beneath my feet, splintering with each step. I collide with something dense, hidden behind a wall of fog. Something hits the ground with a thud at the same moment I do. My body aches, but panic has me scrambling backward on palms sinking into slimy moss. I stare wildly at the ground, waiting for it to devour me whole. But it remains perfectly solid. I shake my head at the blanket of fog nestling against this strange earth. I don't understand. It was all just crumbling, chasing me.
Hello?
The hesitant voice drifts from the chalky air beside me. I look up to find a small woman squinting through the fog. Her hair is a tangled mess of gray, some of it torn from her scalp in clumps. The ragged clothes clinging to her are worn enough to display most of her wrinkled skin. I clear my throat, unsure. Down here. The woman's eyes snap to mine, far clearer than I figured they would be. The sight of me has a wild grin spreading across her face. It grows into an eerie display of blackened gums and missing teeth.
You can hear me,
she whispers in awe. I stand to my feet swiftly. The look on her face displays a hunger that could rival the ravenous ground beneath. Yes? The woman cackles. I take a step back at the crazed sound.
I see you.
She practically sings out the words in a chilling tune. I begin pacing backward when she reaches gnarled hands towards me, gasping at the air where I was.
You are my way out. Tell me how to get out.
No, you don't understand.
Get me out!
She screeches. Each demand is more ear-splitting than the last.
Get me out! Get me out! Get me out!
I turn, poised to outrun this bewildering disaster too, but what I find behind that curtain of fog has my feet fumbling. Hundreds, thousands of bodies fill the moors, as far as the eye can see. Souls mill aimlessly in every direction. Their mouths move, but only a haunting silence meets my ears. Some are haggard, others lost, most hysterical. They pass through one another like ghosts, never seeing or hearing those suffering with them. This is eternal loneliness. All the breath flees from my lungs. So this is the afterlife I have to look forward to. Bony fingers wrap around my biceps, startling me. The deranged woman is clawing at my skin with brittle nails.
Help me. Take me with you.
I tear out of her weak hold and run towards the throng of bodies. I can't help her. I can't. But that doesn't stop the frail woman from persistently chasing what she believes to be her salvation. It shouldn't be too difficult to lose the old woman, though only one of us has to worry about dodging meandering souls. I realize now that Mara's instructions were a veiled warning. Be careful who you touch. With that in mind, I weave through the bodies, elbows tucked firmly at my sides. Before me is a mass of wandering souls. Behind me is a crowing woman who is surprisingly agile for her age. This close to the dead, I can see now that most move with a purpose. Dozens are knee-deep in a murky swamp ahead, digging in the muck as though some treasure lies within. Others are searching under every stone or scaling spindly trees. Is it boredom or belief in something that has them scouring the moors? I turn towards a cluster of gaunt trees, picking up the pace, when a shrieking plea echoes behind. Each labored breath only reminds me how out of shape Kai let me get while he was hunting down my betrothed. Kai. That is who I do all this for. Before we begin building our great legacy together, we need to ensure that no secrets can steal it away from us. My boots sink into thick, black mud as I scan the faces surrounding me. Despite never meeting my mother, I can picture her clearly. Perhaps she has visited my dreams, conjured up from the few portraits Father occasionally let me see. So I search for her blonde hair, hope to catch her blue gaze in the crowd. I happily lean against the first gnarled tree I meet. It feels as though I have been running for hours, futilely searching for Iris Azure. Moss tickles the back of my neck, drooping from a twisted branch above. Still, I rest my head against the knotted trunk, discouraged. Mara is going to pull me out of here any second, and I haven't even found... A figure suddenly steps beside me. I'm forced to stumble back before our arms brush, leaving me with yet another pleading soul to escape. I look up slowly, and a very hardened, spiteful, dead version of myself stares back. This is not the Azure I was hoping to find. Father looks up at the tree, clueless of my presence. Dark circles smudge the skin beneath his eyes. The blonde hair we share is now thinning atop his head. Or maybe I've just never seen him without a crown to cover it up. His gaze is distant as it roams over the branches. He looks like a man who is lost in the only thing keeping him sane. Power. Again, I know I shouldn't. But this time, it is not my insufferable curiosity that sways me. I stretch a hand towards Father's shoulder. I want him to need me. For once. His green eyes slide to mine the moment my fingers fall from that bloody shirt he died in. Kit? My voice is stubbornly even. Hello, Father. He looks me over with that steely gaze, sharp enough to cut, just like he has my entire life. Father searches for flaws to exploit. You're dead? Already? He shakes his head. I always knew you were too weak to rule. For once I refuse to flee from his ire. No, Father. I'm not dead. Just visiting. His scoff is a familiar sound. Visiting? What the hell are you talking about? Death. The woman who dragged you here let me stop by to speak with my mother. I inform. And just like that, his entire demeanor shifts. I have just become useful to him. Iris? He murmurs. Yes, help me find Iris. His gaze grows wild. He plants shaking palms on the tree's trunk. Here. She has to be here. Her voice. It's coming from the tree. I can't help but gape at him. Father's mind was always sharp, cruel. Nothing like the unraveling mess before me. But it seems that death changes a person. Help me get your mother out, Father orders, sounding like his old self despite the sudden hysteria. Then we can all go home. You will take us home. My gaze is icy, aiming at such a pointed glare that the man I once lived to please feels equally wrong and cathartic. Tell me you need my help. Father doesn't bother looking at me. I need your help, kid. Now get us out of here. Despite the flippancy with which he says the words, I figured it would mean more hearing them from him. But the infatuation is gone, leaving only a man before me. A mediocre one at that. I can't help but smile. I'm not taking you home. Father scowls at me. It's a look he only ever gave Kai. You will do as I say, boy. No, I won't. I take a slow step towards him. I worked so hard to impress you. Earn your praise, because I thought you were doing something great. Something worth all the pain you put your sons through. My voice wavers with emotion. But you were too obsessive to do anything great. Father barks out a laugh. Look in the mirror, son. Your own obsession is what brought you here, he taunts. You wanted to see me. No. Even now, you're consumed by trying to be better than me. He stands a breath away now, like some cruel reflection of what I could become. But you will fail. Your weakness will be your undoing. I will be stronger than you ever were. I roar with a shove to his chest. My legacy will bury yours in the history books. I will become the greatness you never were. You will remain exactly as you always have, Father spits. A disappointment. My fist is suddenly clenched around the collar of his soiled tunic, while the other pulls back to strike. Father seems to find this unfortunate position funny.
Go on, son,
he goads.
Hit me. I dare you to actually do something that takes an inkling of strength.
My throat bobs. I hesitate. Another condescending laugh.
A damn ordinary killed me, and you can't even throw a punch.
Still, my fist does not meet his face. I want to see the look in his eyes when I murmur, "You can rot here, knowing that I will never continue your mediocre plan for Ilya." I pause, letting the words sink in. No, I am going to rule over every kingdom, and they will worship me like a god for the powers I give them. I watch with a smile as all the color drains from his face.
The plague?
Father stutters.
You wouldn't.
I am. Every word is sharp. Your pride made you weak. There is no need to covet our power when I can rule over every kingdom it touches. So it is you, Father, who will be a disappointment in the shadow of my great legacy. I let my fist fly towards his face, and then dark. My heart flutters back to life, and I wake on the floor of my study with a choking gasp.
Chapter 14. Mara. The king is just barely alive when a swarm of Imperials comes to collect him for the ball. He is found, most unfortunately, still recovering on the floor of his study. A healer is called to Kit's side within a matter of moments, though he does little more than poke and prod at the protesting king. Mara finds the whole display quite comical, really. When unable to rely on their ability to miraculously heal, these avowed physicians are rendered utterly useless. On second thought, perhaps death finds this cynically sad. Kit all but commands every concerned face from the room and, with a quick glance at Mara, sets a steady pace toward the ballroom. Death considers his lingering gaze an invitation to accompany him, and who is she to deny the king? The entourage stops before the ballroom's looming doors, where a servant hands Kit, His Majesty to her, unlike Mara, who is enviously on a first-name basis with the king, a black suit coat to shrug on over his tunic, dark enough to disguise the splotch of blood that summoned death to his study. That twining crown is back upon his golden hair, gleaming in the dull light. He is undeniably handsome, Mara thinks, because it is a fact, and is she not allowed to simply state the truth? The king gestures for his throng of Imperials, and the paranoid healer, to take a step back. Mara, for a reason unbeknownst to her, steps into the empty space beside him. With his gaze still pinned on the closed doors, Kit murmurs beneath his breath, "We are waiting for Peyton." Death, though no one can see her but the king, does not look at him either. "You are betrothed." He is quiet for a long moment. "I can't imagine what else you've heard around the castle." "Your Majesty?" the healer inquires. "Did you say something?" "No, Eli." Kit's voice is even but not unkind. "And be sure to keep your distance tonight. My brother will ask questions if you are following me around all evening." "Yes, Your Majesty." The silence resumes, only to be shattered by the distant tapping of heels. Paid gray soon fills the space on Kit's opposite side, draped in a sheet of silver. "You look lovely," he says to her steadily. Death does not know why this makes her stiffen. "Thank you, Kit." Peyton smiles at him. Another thing Death dislikes. "You look very handsome." The king nods, offering an arm to his betrothed. She accepts. The doors begin to swing open. "I see your ring made it back to the correct hand," Kit murmurs. "Of course." Death has heard enough. She doesn't care about their engagement. Truly. She is just bored. Stepping out onto the balcony, Mara decides to descend the staircase to her left. It's an arbitrary choice to make. She then wades into the sea of sound and color that laps against the ballroom's ornate walls. Bodies sway around the room, glittering in the setting sunlight that streams through a dozen windows. An orange glow warms the sky beyond, ominous yet beautiful. Death quite likes that description. In fact, she finds herself standing before a window, watching the sky light up like a vibrant soul. The king is now making a toast from the balcony above, but Death is far too occupied to notice. She weaves between each bejeweled being, beholding every bit of finery. But when the music resumes with an energetic melody, Mara takes her post against a pillar and observes the masses. They drink and gossip and dance, their souls swirling before Death's eyes like splotches of colorful ink. The king is quickly tugged in every direction by a swarm of women before his betrothed drags him onto the dance floor. Mara looks away. There are more interesting things to witness. That she is sure of. She is quickly proven correct, per usual, when a flash of lilac hair draws her attention from across the ballroom. Even at this distance, Death can still make out a bickering Blair and Lenny. It is odd, though. Not their constant quarreling, of course, for she had not expected the Telly to be released from her cage this evening. And apparently, neither had the bride-to-be. Peyton lunges for Adina's killer in an impressive show of hatred. The gasping crowd closes in on the scene, obscuring Death's view of the entertainment she so craves. Though, mercifully, it seems that Mara does not miss much. The future queen is quick to stride from the scene she caused and guzzle a glass of champagne. Death, beginning to enjoy herself now, flicks her gaze over the souls she has taken a liking to. Lenny seems relieved despite the look of loathing on his assignment's face. The Imperial then, assumedly, asks Blair to dance. Mara is quite certain that his offer is met with an array of condescension, but in the end, the unlikely pair is swaying. Impossibly, their souls are slowly growing closer. Threads of yellow and green begin to intertwine, burrowing into one another like barbs. And it hurts just as much, Death thinks, when two tied souls are torn apart. "You're still here." The king steps beside the pillar, slipping his hands into the pockets of dark pants. "I go where the entertainment is, and tonight, that is here," Mara states. Kit's gaze traces the face of Death distantly. "Is it boring, your existence?" Mara meets his stare. He likely wishes to keep his mind from the horrors he witnessed in the moors. And Death, in an effort to disprove her monstrous reputation, indulges him. Why else would I take interest in the mundane lives of humans? The king finds this funny for some reason. He often unearths humor from the driest of Death's words. Perhaps her bluntness has been mistaken for humor. They watch couples spin around the dance floor. Drunk and drunker. Ginger Snap and the bestower of such a title. Peyton and a stranger. Blair is here. This is more of a declaration from Mara than it is a question. Again, Kit finds something about this comical. Have you been watching them? As I said, entertainment. The king shakes his head. I'm trying to acclimate the two of them. Peyton needs to get used to being around Blair, despite how difficult. And should you not be dancing with your betrothed? Mara asks earnestly. Kit attempts a stiff shrug. It's not every day you get to talk to death. I figured I would take advantage. Mara certainly does not find this flattering, not even in the slightest. Is she part of your plan for this greater Ilya? A curt nod from the king. I see, Death says, because she does. This marriage has nothing to do with love. Strangely, I hope to see you again, Kit murmurs. He steps away from the pillar, retreating once again into his own mind. You're the only person I can talk to about dying. Mara watches him melt into the chaos before her. She would see him again, Death decides. He is entertainment, nothing more. Not nostalgia, or meaning, or a memory made man. Besides, she has no soul left to tie to another. Not even to the shadow of her past. Can you believe she tried to attack me in front of the entire court? This is the third time Blair has reiterated her disbelief. Yes, actually, I can, Lenny says, just as he has the last 2 times since slipping from the ballroom. Death hears Blair trip over a stack of books behind her. It is quite dark in here, enough to have a human stumbling blindly. Not every creature feels so at home in the shadows. The telly's frustrated growl is smothered by Lenny's hushed warning. Keep your voice down. This is the last place you are supposed to be right now. My voice is down, she snaps. Everything is just loud when you have freakish hearing. Blair takes 3 more steps before adding, This better be the right way, Ginger Snap. I'm sorry, he mumbles sarcastically. Would you like to lead us through this dark library with your hypervision? And he turns to see Blair glaring at a spot 3 feet to his right. Between the two of us, your hair color is way weirder than mine. Death ponders this. In fact, she thinks quite often on the unusual hair colors that pure power provided. But this plague was picky. Death knows the feeling personally. Not all those in Ilya were fit for strength. And the silly humans never bothered to wonder why. More books are plowed over by a huffing Blair. I can't see anything, she says in a falsely sweet tone. I can't even tell if my loathing look is aimed at you. Turn your head to the left, Lenny directs. Little more. Stop. Right there. She makes a sound of disgust. Guide me. Death perches on a stack of books, watching Blair stick her hand into the darkness. She wears a look of utter annoyance. Mara finds her expressions inspirational. Lenny shakes his head, strides toward her, slips his hand into hers. He wears a look of concern Blair can't see. Mara wonders, as she often does, if this is due to a lack of repulsion at her touch. The thought is fleeting, though. Death is hardly the romantic she used to be. The Imperial leads them between each towering bookcase, using that sharp vision of his to admire the intricate molding clinging to their corners. Mara follows dutifully. They weave through the massive library until a wall of books blocks their path. We are at the Elite Records, Lenny informs his peeved assignment. Also, why the hell are we at the Elite Records? Because I am not convinced you're using all your power, Blair retorts dully. Now find the hyper records. Yes, Death is very pleased she tagged along on this endeavor. Since the Imperial first sensed her presence in that hall, Mara has puzzled over how such a feat was possible. And this is her chance to discover the truth. Lenny drags a finger across the worn spines. Not using all my power? He scoffs. Look, I know you wanted to help make me stronger or whatever, but I'm pretty sure I'd know how to use my ability. Death taps her foot against the worn floor. Elites so love to pretend they understand the power they are given. Have you trained with it every day? Blair interrogates. Pushed yourself to the point of exhaustion? Found your limits? The Imperial pulls a thin book from the shelf. Well, no, but... Then you have no idea what you're capable of. She cuts in dismissively. Your ability is like a muscle. If you want it to grow stronger, you need to put in the work. And out of the goodness of your heart, Lenny says skeptically, you want to be my personal trainer? The telly glares up at where she assumes Lenny's face to be, which happens to be his chin. You're hopeless, and I take pity on you. He shrugs, sighs. Good enough for me. Just read the book, Gingersnap. Blair then yanks her hand free from his, as though she only just remembered it was being held. Death has yet to determine her verdict on their souls. Perhaps they are not as hopeless as she had first thought. But Mara hates to be wrong, so she silently roots for their demise. Begrudgingly, Lenny flips open the crumbling leather cover. The pages are yellowed, each one dedicated to the hyper ability. A century's worth of records rests beneath his fingers. Skip to the back, Blair orders. There should be a section on the ability's development. How do you know that? The Imperial asks. I didn't think anyone opened these records. The sergeant, she huffs. She made me read the telly volume when I was 8. Right, Lenny says slowly. His fingers fumble with a creased page. So, what about your dad? You don't talk about him much. Her mouth forms a mocking sound. There's not much to say. You wouldn't even believe he's the general when comparing him to my mother. She tears shamelessly at the skin on her palm, forgetting that the Imperial can see the anxious habit. In his personal life, he's the one taking orders, not giving them. He just puts up with Mother better than I do. Lenny hums softly at her words. Sometimes it's better to stay with someone maddening than go mad with loneliness. Surprisingly, this is met with no condescending remark. Maybe, Blair finally mutters. She clears her throat. And your father? Never met him, Lenny answers distractedly. And from what I've heard, he's not worth missing. The sound of rustling pages fills the dark corner. Death leans over the Imperial's shoulder, noting that most of the book is blank. Flipping to the final entry, Lenny utters a dull, wow. A hyper's ability can develop a single sentence's worth. Just read it, Blair orders. All right. The Imperial shakes his head before reciting the scrawled words. In some cases, hypers who learn to open their minds have developed a sixth sense. Death has found her answer. Interesting, Blair murmurs, voicing Mara's thoughts exactly. Interesting? The Imperial blinks at the vague string of words. What the hell does that even mean? If only he could tap into that sixth sense now. Death would be happy to explain. Why are you asking me? The telly sneers. Open up your mind and find out. And how does one go about doing that? For starters, straighten your spine, she snaps. I've never seen someone with such terrible posture. And, more obviously, don't stifle your power. Let it do as it pleases and see what happens. Lenny stares at her. How strangely encouraging of you. I'm encouraging you not to be pathetic, she clarifies with disgust. Well, me and my unstifled power can hear how fast your heart is beating. Scowling, Blair lifts her middle finger into the darkness. Saw that too, the Imperial says cheerily. Yes, perhaps Death feels a bit guilty for preying on their downfall. Chapter 15. Mara. Blair wakes with a jolt, gasping for air. This manages to startle even Death from where she sits beneath a window. She can usually be found here, watching the sky display its colors. The moors are obscenely dull in comparison. Lenny is quick to peer down at the telly, his freckled face drenched with concern. Are you all right? He shakes his head. I think you were having a nightmare or something. Blair shoves him back with a surge of power. How long have you been awake? She demands. A little while? The Imperial blinks at her from across the room, looking impossibly more worried. You were sleeping, so I didn't want to bother you. Well, you should have. She seethes, sitting up in bed. I don't need you watching over me. Mara stands to pace the perimeter of the room. She thinks better on her feet. Perhaps it is the rhythm her mind craves, something her still heart can no longer provide. Hesitantly, Lenny asks, And why would that be a problem if I was? Death watches the telly swallow thickly. Perhaps her pride, because Blair finally murmurs, I dream about Adina. Often. And I don't want anyone to ever witness it. The Imperial lifts a brow. Witness what, exactly? My weakness, she bites out. Lenny laughs, drawing a scowl from Blair. Your weakness? You do know you're talking to a hyper right now, yes? I killed a criminal, or so I thought, and she haunts me every night, the telly blurts. Of course that makes me weak. And I'm supposed to be a general someday? Now it is she who laughs, albeit humorlessly. You are not giving yourself enough credit, Lenny scolds as he steps toward her. Don't worry. You are terrifying. Maybe that is the problem, the telly ventures bitterly. Maybe I was meant to be like Adina. From what I've heard, she was passionate, kind, spirited. Her voice grows oddly timid. Mara tilts her head at this shift in tone. What if that is who I could have been? A girl who dreamed and lived and pursued her passion. A girl who had two people willing to kill for her. There is still time to be that girl, if you want, Lenny says softly. Or you can remain exactly as you are. A frightening, frigid bitch. A compliment, of course. He adds hurriedly. Look, you must feel cheated, like you never got a chance to figure out who you are. So do that now. We are killing you, after all. I doubt there will be a better time to start over. Sincerity coats his words, the type Mara knows a man only offers when he cares for someone. In return, Blair seems rather comforted by his receptive response. This alone has Death beginning to begrudgingly question how doomed these souls really are. Lenny sits on the edge of the bed. To Mara's annoyance, the telly allows this. But, he starts slowly, you're allowed to be sharp, you know. Even the prettiest flowers have thorns. His freckled face reddens. Not that I'm saying you're pretty. I mean, shit, you are pretty, but... No need to embarrass yourself further, Blair quips. I know I'm pretty. It's the only quality of mine people care to compliment. Well, that's all you let them see. She forces her features into a dull expression. And you see something else? The Imperial shrugs. I see someone who became what they needed to, and that takes courage. They stare at each other. Too long. I want to find Peyton. Blair's sudden demand startles her ginger snap. What? We aren't done forming the plan. Blair, this is a delicate matter. There is nothing delicate about fake dying, she snaps. I'm sick of waiting to begin my life. Just go get her and... No. Death didn't think Lenny was capable of such a stern objection. We have to do this right, or one of you may actually end up dead. We aren't ready. The telly bristles at his blatant rejections. Fine. Blair, I'm hungry. She gives him a mental shove off the bed. Will you at least get me food, or do you need time to plan your route to the kitchen? Lenny fights to find his footing beside the bed. Your condescension doesn't work on me. I'll try harder next time. I'm sure you will. The Imperial fixes that white mask onto his face before striding toward the door. You know, you're annoyingly funny at my expense. He steps into the hall. See, there is a compliment that has nothing to do with your appearance. Blair is quick to cover her slight smile with another demand. Tell Gail to add a dash of toasted coconut to her muffins. She can thank me later. I'll be sure to relay your request in a less demeaning tone. Death takes her leave with the Imperial, stepping out into the hall, where the floor falls away. There, atop the plush carpet, she sinks gracefully toward a different plane entirely. Her feet meet the cracked earth of her home, and it rumbles in approval at her arrival. Yes, it is rather bleak here in the moors, Death thinks as she takes in the brittle trees and wailing souls. But this is her eternity. Best not to compare her gloomy domain to the vibrance that the living so love to overlook. With that in mind, Mara tends to the awaiting souls like any other day in the afterlife. She collects countless from everywhere life exists beyond the moors. Some are rather peeved with death, more than usual, because, admittedly, they have been trapped within their lifeless bodies for far too long. It can be quite claustrophobic, Mara imagines, being entombed in your own decaying flesh. You see, a soul remains trapped within its vessel until Mara gathers and releases it into the moors. Her time in Ilia, though strictly educational, or so she tells herself, has left Death a bit distracted. Souls have been neglected in their corpses for far longer than Mara cares to admit, and she typically prides herself on efficiency. After dragging a particularly grumpy spirit to its underwhelming afterlife, Death steps back onto the plane where sunsets are a normality and heartbeats run rampant in every chest. She appears before Blair's door, only to find her standing outside of it. Mara tilts her head at the scene she has stumbled upon. A tall man stands opposite the telly, his hair like a wave of midnight crashing over his brow. He is broad, his strong features only made less severe by the promise of dimples framing his mouth, and his gray eyes pin Blair to the wall. He points to her door. Get back in there, please. Death knows this man. She walks a slow circle around his powerful body. Yes, he has delivered many souls to Mara. She has seen his stern face above the bodies he has drained of life. In fact, even she has heard whispers of this elite. Here stands the enforcer of Ilia, the brother to a dying king, the deliverer of death, they say. Mara would be the judge of that. She halts before him, studying his soul. A flicker of surprise touches her features, witnessed by no one. A shimmering darkness swirls within him, sheer and threaded with strands of pure white. Death blinks at such an odd sight. This is certainly not what she had expected. It seems the slummer taught you some manners. How ironic. There is that tiresome insult. Mara discerns, dolefully, precisely who it is the telly refers to. For a woman with the gift of evading death, she certainly deserves more respect from the living. Blair's malice is like a reflex. It is as though she is wired to be his enemy, forced to forever find her worth in whether or not the enforcer still considers her competition. The telly had told the truth in that house, the one just beside those twisted trees uprooting the past. She can't help but despise the Azar brothers. The enforcer's voice is low. Don't, Blair. Oh, but she does, and the telly likely doesn't even know why. So will you share her with Kit the rest of your life, or find another ordinary on the streets? Blair gasps sharply when the looming man slams her against the wall with a single thought. That has death halting before him, her gaze searching his stern features. She is beginning to discover that this is no regular elite, as they so enjoy calling themselves. No, his soul alone is a complexity that does not belong to Ilya. The enforcer steps toward Blair, who has found it futile to fight against her own power. The man is frighteningly calm, his threat little more than a murmur. Talk about her like that again, and you will be begging to stay locked in that room, safe from me. Mara believes him, for his soul calls to something within her. Shit! The telly lifts her widening gaze to his, nearly laughing. You're in love with her. Another curious discovery. Blair is abruptly released from the clutches of this man's mind. The enforcer struggles to smother the shock on his face, and that is all the proof death needs. Peyton Gray's heart belongs to another, the brother of her betrothed. I always knew there was something between you, but... This time, Blair does laugh. You're completely in love with her. The strongest elite, brought to his knees by an ordinary. Ironic, romantic, doomed. Mara has lived this tragedy. The telly steps forward slowly, still shaking her head at the lovesick prince. Her grin is cutting. Oh, you are Prince Kai! Blair rolls her eyes at the familiar voice. The Imperial, rounding a corner, balances 2 plates of food while wearing a horrified expression beneath his mask. The glare he throws his assignment burns with betrayal. Lenny then clears his throat to make room for the wave of words about to flood from his mouth. Hello, sir, it's great to see you. Blair, sweetheart, you're meant to be in the room, not loitering outside of it, yes? Lenny? The telly starts sweetly. My little ginger snap that I could quite literally snap in half with a single thought. Kai spotted me before I had the chance to enter the room and send my sharpened knives flying toward those who pass beneath the window. She addresses the enforcer then. He loves that game. Don't let him tell you otherwise. Death finally has a name for the infamous man using hers. Death finds Lenny's immense discomfort rather entertaining. Quite the sense of humor she's got. He herds the telly toward the door. Never a dull moment with this one. Oh, please, she snaps. Don't pretend that you like me. It will only make me work harder to... The Imperial slams the door in her face. And sure you don't. Blair finishes furiously from within her room. Mara remains in the hall, still immensely curious about this deliverer of death. Of her. Keep her out of sight, all right? He orders. It could have been Peyton that walked down this hall, and we all know what she would have done. That was precisely what Blair was hoping for. Death wishes to shout at the humans. But there is no use. A lifetime ago, when Mara was young and still enthusiastic about her career, she would talk to the living. Not for them to hear, of course, but for her to never forget the voice of a gentle girl who died violently. "Yes, sir." Lenny nods in understanding. "She can't stay locked up forever, though. It's not right." Mara is surprised by the Imperial's boldness on behalf of his assignment. "I know," the enforcer sighs, "but Payton needs time." He turns then, setting a quick pace down the hall before calling over his shoulder. "Good luck with her." "I don't need luck. She's not so bad," Lenny murmurs. The door swings open to display the patronizing pout on Blair's face. How sweet, Gingersnap. "Shit!" He practically jumps at the sudden sight of her. "What, did you have your ear to the door?" "Like you couldn't hear me breathing," she returns. "Your intake of breath is the last thing I pay attention to." The telly scowls. "Then you are clearly still stifling your power." "No." The Imperial's stern defiance is accompanied by a wagging finger in Blair's face. "No, you don't get to do that. I'm the one who should be mad right now." "Go on, then," she goads. "Scold me. I could use a good laugh." Lenny steps into the room, his brows knit together. "Fine. You can't sneak out like that again. What if the king throws me out before we even get through with the plan?" Sneering, Blair steps close enough to have the Imperial swallowing. "And what is that plan, exactly?" "It's time I light a fire under your ass, Gingersnap. Otherwise, I'll never get out of here." The Imperial is hardly listening. No, his mind is somewhere else entirely. "Fire," he mutters. A boyish grin spreads across his freckled face. "I have an idea." Mara turns away from their hushed conversation to peer down the hallway. The enforcer is gone, and yet another mystery is unsolved. But Death is unworried. They will meet again.